What if I told you that some of the craziest stories you dismissed as myths are actually documented facts? From government conspiracies to medical nightmares, we're about to reveal 30 urban legends that seemed too insane to be real, but are verified truth. Sometimes the conspiracy theorists were right. Sometimes the horror stories actually happened. Buckle up, because reality is about to get disturbing. Legend number 1. The CIA conducted mind control experiments on unwitting citizens, MKUltra. For decades, this sounded like paranoid conspiracy theory, the government secretly drugging citizens to test mind control. Then, in 1975, documents proved it was real. Project MKUltra existed from 1953 to 1973. The CIA administered LSD and other drugs to unwitting Americans, including prisoners, mental patients, and random citizens. They ran experiments on interrogation, behavior modification, and cytological torture. The program was illegal, unethical, and destroyed lives. Most records were destroyed in 1973, but enough survived to prove it happened. That crazy conspiracy theory about government mind control? Documented fact. The conspiracy theorists were right. Your government did experiment on citizens without consent for 20 years. Legend number 2. Coca-Cola originally contained cocaine. The idea that Coca-Cola had actual cocaine sounds like anti-corporate mythology. It's true. The original 1886 formula contained cocaine from coca leaves. Cocaine wasn't illegal yet. It was in various medicines and tonics. Coca-Cola removed most cocaine by 1903 and all traces by 1929 as regulations changed. But yes, early Coca-Cola had cocaine. That medicinal tonic story, it was literally a cocaine-laced beverage. The name isn't a coincidence. Coca-Cola, coca leaves, cocaine, and cola nuts, caffeine. Your grandparents' grandparents could buy cocaine at the pharmacy in a refreshing beverage. The legend is historical fact. Legend number 3. Doctors used to perform surgery without anesthesia while patients were awake. This sounds medieval, but it was standard practice into the 1800s. Before anesthesia was discovered in 1846, surgery was performed on fully conscious, screaming patients held down by assistants. Speed was critical. Amputations took minutes because patient survival depended on minimizing time in agony. The introduction of ether and chloroform revolutionized surgery. Before that, unimaginable suffering was just part of medical treatment. That nightmare scenario of being cut open while awake, that was Tuesday for surgeons before 1846. Your ancestors endured medical procedures that would be considered torture today. The old-timey surgery wasn't charming. It was horror. Legend number 4. There are bodies on Mount Everest used as trail markers. Climbers tell stories of using frozen corpses as landmarks. It sounds like dark mountaineering mythology. It's real. Over 200 bodies remain on Everest, many visible from climbing routes. Recovery is often impossible or too dangerous. Some bodies have become known waypoints. Green Boots marks a cave at 27,900 feet. Climbers pass corpses on their way to summit. The mountain is a frozen graveyard where retrieval is infeasible. That disturbing story about navigating by dead bodies? Documented reality of high-altitude mountaineering. The bodies aren't hidden, they're part of the landscape, frozen memorials to failed summit attempts. Legend number 5. A woman was kept in a basement for 24 years and had 7 children with her captor. The Josef Fritzl case sounds like extreme fiction. It's real. In 2008, Austrian police discovered Elisabeth Fritzl had been imprisoned in a basement by her father since 1984. He built a hidden dungeon, imprisoned his daughter, and fathered 7 children with her over 24 years. She and 3 children lived in the basement the entire time. The other children were raised upstairs with a cover story. The case was real, documented, and resulted in life imprisonment. That too horrible to be true story? It happened. The details are worse than most horror fiction, and it was real. Legend number 6. The government poisoned alcohol during Prohibition to deter drinking. Sounds like anti-government paranoia. In 1926, the U.S. government deliberately poisoned industrial alcohol, knowing bootleggers would steal it for consumption. They wanted to scare people from drinking. The program killed an estimated 10,000 people. Industrial alcohol was denatured with methanol and other poisons. The government knew bootleggers would redistill it for drinking. They made it more poisonous anyway. That mass poisoning of citizens by their own government, official policy. The bodies piled up in hospitals from deliberately contaminated alcohol. Your government chose to kill its own citizens to enforce prohibition. Legend number 7. A circus elephant was executed by hanging. The story of murderous Mary the elephant being hanged in 1916 sounds absurd. It happened. In Irwin, Tennessee, an elephant killed her handler and was sentenced to death by hanging. They used a railroad crane to hang the elephant in front of thousands of spectators. The first attempt failed when the chain broke. They succeeded on the second try. Photos exist. The event is documented historical fact. That bizarre elephant execution story? Real event with photographic evidence. Early 20th century justice was sometimes stranger and crueler than fiction. Legend number 8. Corpse medicine was real. People consumed human remains as treatment. The idea that Europeans ate mummies and drank human blood as medicine sounds like dark fantasy. It was standard medical practice from the 12th to 18th centuries. Corpse medicine was real. Egyptian mummies were ground into powder and consumed. Human skull was prescribed for headaches. Blood was drunk fresh from executions. Fat from executed criminals was used in ointments. This wasn't fringe practice. It was mainstream medicine. That cannibalistic medicine from history? Documented practice across Europe for centuries. Your ancestors were medicinal cannibals who thought consuming corpses had healing properties. Legend number 9. A town danced itself to death in 1518. The dancing plague of 1518 sounds like medieval legend. In Strasbourg, France, a woman started dancing and couldn't stop. Within a week, 34 others joined. Within a month, 400 people were dancing. Many danced until they collapsed from exhaustion, heart attack, or stroke. Dozens died. Historical records document this mass psychogenic illness. No one knows the exact cause. Theories include ergot poisoning, mass hysteria, or religious fervor. That story of people dancing to death? It's in municipal records. The dancing plague was real, killed dozens, and we still don't fully understand why. Legend number 10. Doctors performed lobotomies with an ice pick through the eye socket. The ice pick lobotomy sounds too barbaric to be modern medicine. Dr. Walter Freeman performed over 3,000 transorbital lobotomies using an instrument similar to an ice pick, inserted through the eye socket into the brain. He performed them in his office, sometimes in minutes, often without surgical training for the patient's doctor. He traveled the country in a van called the lobotomobile, performing the procedure. This was the 1940s to 1960s, not the Dark Ages. That horror story about brain scrambling with ice picks? Standard psychiatric treatment awarded a Nobel Prize. Medicine's dark history is recent history. Legend number 11. A nuclear bomb was lost and never recovered. Sounds like movie plot. The U.S. military has lost at least 6 nuclear weapons that were never recovered. They're called broken arrows. One hydrogen bomb lies in the Wassaw Sound near Tybee Island, Georgia, since 1958. A B-47 bomber collided with an F-86 fighter. The pilot jettisoned the 7,600-pound Mark 15 hydrogen bomb before crash landing. The Air Force searched but never recovered it. It's still there. That legend about lost nukes somewhere in America? There are multiple lost nuclear weapons in various locations. The government confirmed this. You could theoretically swim near a lost hydrogen bomb. Legend number 12. The government conducted radiation experiments on citizens without consent. From the 1940s to 1970s, the U.S. government conducted radiation experiments on unwitting citizens. This isn't conspiracy theory. It was admitted in 1993. They injected plutonium into hospital patients without consent. fed radioactive materials to mentally disabled children, exposed prisoners to high radiation doses, and conducted atmospheric nuclear tests near populated areas while studying downwind effects on residents. Thousands were exposed. That radiation experimentation conspiracy? Declassified and confirmed. Your government used citizens as radiation test subjects for decades. Legend number 13. People have woken up during surgery while paralyzed. Anesthesia awareness, being conscious during surgery but unable to move or communicate due to paralysis drugs, sounds like nightmare fuel. It happens to 1 to 2 per 1,000 surgical patients. You're awake, you feel pain, you can't move or alert anyone because you're chemically paralyzed. Some patients experience the entire surgery consciously. Modern monitoring has reduced this, but it still occurs. That surgical horror story? It's a documented complication. Some people remember their entire surgery in paralyzed agony. The nightmare is real and more common than you'd hope. Legend number 14. The Toy Box Killer built a torture truck. David Parker Ray's Toy Box sounds like extreme fiction. He converted a cargo trailer into a soundproof torture chamber with medical equipment, restraints, and elaborate torture devices. He kidnapped women, held them captive, tortured them for days, then released them after drugging them to cause memory loss. He's suspected in 60-plus murders. The FBI found his trailer exactly as described in legends. That mobile torture chamber story? Real. The truck existed. The crimes were real. Some urban legends are documented serial killer cases. Legend number 15. A man lived in a woman's attic without her knowing. Stories of strangers living in people's homes secretly sound like horror movies. In Japan, a homeless woman lived in a man's closet for a year without detection. In other cases, people have been found living in attics, basements, and walls. In 2008, a man in Japan discovered a woman living in his closet after noticing food disappearing. She'd been there for months, coming out when he was gone or asleep. Security footage revealed her. That someone living in your house urban legend? It's happened multiple documented times. Your fear of someone hiding in your home? Occasionally justified. Legend 16. Radium was added to products as a health treatment. Radium water, radium suppositories, radium cosmetics. The idea that radioactive material was marketed as health product sounds insane. In the early 1900s, radium was in everything. Radiathor was radium-dissolved water marketed as health tonic. People drank it daily. Wealthy socialite Eben Byers consumed 1,400 bottles and died of radiation poisoning. His jaw fell off before death. Radium was in toothpaste, cosmetics, and suppositories before its dangers were understood. That radioactive health product story? Real products, real deaths, real advertisements that aged horrifically. Your great-grandparents could buy radiation poisoning over the counter. Legend 17. Someone survived being swallowed by a whale. The story of someone being swallowed by a whale and surviving sounds biblical. In 2021, lobster diver Michael Packard was swallowed by a humpback whale off Cape Cod. He was in the whale's mouth for 30 to 40 seconds before the whale surfaced and spit him out. He survived with bruising and soft tissue damage. While the Jonah story remains religious text, actual whale swallowing has happened. That swallowed by whale legend? It happened in 2021 with medical documentation, witnesses, and survivor interviews. Reality occasionally validates ancient stories. Legend 18. Dead bodies were robbed for dental gold. Body snatching for teeth sounds like Gothic horror. It was common practice. Before modern dentistry, human teeth from corpses were transplanted into wealthy patients' mouths. After the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, teeth were scavenged from dead soldiers and sold as Waterloo teeth, premium because they came from young, healthy soldiers. Grave robbing for teeth was profitable. That macabre dental practice? Documented history through the 19th century. Dentures were made from dead people's teeth, sometimes stolen from graves, sometimes harvested from battlefields. Your ancestors might have worn corpse teeth. Legend 19. A radioactive Boy Scout built a nuclear reactor in his shed. The story of a teenager building a nuclear reactor sounds impossible. David Hahn, the radioactive Boy Scout, built a nuclear breeder reactor in his mother's shed in 1994. He collected radioactive materials from smoke detectors, lantern mantles, and other sources. He successfully created a neutron source and low-level nuclear reaction before authorities discovered it and declared his property a Superfund hazmat site. That amateur nuclear reactor story? Real. A 17-year-old created radioactive hazard in suburban Michigan. The legend is documented EPA case files. Legend number 20. The Tuskegee experiment let black men die from syphilis untreated. This sounds too evil to be real U.S. medical history. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service studied untreated syphilis in black men in Alabama. They told participants they were receiving free health care, but deliberately withheld treatment, even after penicillin became standard cure in 1947. They watched men die, go blind, and develop severe complications for 40 years to study disease progression. 128 died directly from syphilis or complications. That medical atrocity? It happened for 40 years with government funding. The experiment only stopped because a whistleblower leaked it to press in 1972. Legend number 21. A woman gave birth to rabbits, or so doctors believed. In 1726, Mary Toft convinced doctors she was giving birth to rabbits. Sounds absurd, but prominent physicians examined her and believed it initially. She inserted rabbit parts and gave birth to them, fooling multiple doctors before the hoax was exposed. The legend isn't that it was real, it's that credible medical professionals initially believed and documented it. That rabbit birth hoax, it happened and reveals how much medical understanding has changed. Doctors in 1726 thought interspecies birth was possible enough to investigate seriously. Legend 22. Spontaneous human combustion has occurred. The idea that people randomly burst into flames internally sounds supernatural. While spontaneous is misleading, there are documented cases of human bodies burning almost completely with minimal surrounding damage. The wick effect explains this. Clothing acts as wick, body fat as fuel, creating contained intense burning that consumes the body while leaving surroundings intact. Cases exist where bodies burned almost completely in otherwise undamaged rooms. That spontaneous combustion phenomenon? Real cases, though the mechanism is physics, not paranormal. The bodies did burn in seemingly impossible ways. Legend 23. Someone was buried alive and woke up in their coffin. Pre-modern fear of being buried alive led to safety coffins with bells and breathing tubes. This fear was justified. It happened. In the 1800s, premature burial occurred due to limited medical knowledge about death confirmation. People have been exhumed and found to have clawed at coffin lids, shifted positions, or shown other signs of having awakened underground. Modern embalming has eliminated this risk, but historically, the nightmare was real. That buried alive horror? It happened enough times to create an industry of prevention devices. Your ancestors had legitimate reason to fear premature burial. Legend 24. A nuclear power plant had a disaster covered up for decades. Sounds like conspiracy theory. The Kistim disaster in the Soviet Union in 1957 was one of the worst nuclear accidents in history and was covered up for 30+ years. A storage tank containing radioactive waste exploded, releasing massive radiation. Hundreds of thousands were exposed. Entire villages were evacuated and erased from maps. The Soviets denied it happened. The truth only emerged in the 1980s and 90s. That hidden nuclear disaster legend? Real event, real cover-up, real casualties hidden for decades. Chernobyl wasn't the first Soviet nuclear disaster, just the first one they couldn't hide. Legend 25. Doctors created a two-headed dog. Soviet scientist Vladimir Demikov surgically grafted a puppy's head and forelimbs onto an adult dog, creating a living two-headed dog. This sounds like mad science fiction from the 1950s. He did this 20-plus times between 1954 and 1959. The grafted heads were functional. They could see, hear, smell, and even lap water, which drained from the stump of the esophagus. The dogs survived days to weeks before dying from tissue rejection. That Frankenstein dog experiment? Real Soviet science documented in medical journals and photographs. The ethical nightmare wasn't fiction, it was published research. Legend number 26. A town was contaminated with LSD in bread. The legend of Pont Saint-Esprit, France, where an entire town went insane in 1951, sounds like mass hysteria fiction. Hundreds were affected by ergot poisoning from contaminated bread or possibly LSD. People experienced hallucinations, convulsions, and psychosis. 5 died. Dozens were committed to asylums. For years, ergot poisoning was the explanation. Recent evidence suggests it may have been a CIA LSD experiment. That town-wide drug contamination? Real event with 500-plus affected. Whether accidental ergot or deliberate testing remains debated, but the mass poisoning happened. Legend number 27. People were put in freak shows against their will. Stories of people exhibited in human zoos and freak shows sound like exaggerated dark history. It was standard entertainment into the 20th century. People with medical conditions, different ethnicities, or physical differences were displayed. Ota Benga, a Congolese man, was displayed in the Bronx Zoo Monkey House in 1906. Julia Pastrana, a woman with hypertrichosis, was displayed alive and her body was exhibited after death. That human exhibition horror? It was mainstream entertainment. The last human zoo closed in 1958 in Belgium. This isn't ancient history. Your grandparents could have attended. Legend 28. A pill was created that makes you smell like roses when you sweat. This sounds like absurd urban legend or joke product. In Japan, you can buy pills that supposedly make your sweat smell like roses or other scents. The pills contain geraniol and other fragrant compounds that are excreted through sweat and breath. While effectiveness is debated, the products exist and sell. That smell like roses pill legend? Real products available for purchase. Whether they work as advertised is questionable, but they exist. The legend became reality through Japanese beauty innovation. Legend 29. A woman found a stranger living in her house through a smart home camera. In 2019, a woman in North Carolina discovered a stranger had been living in her house for weeks. She saw him on her smart camera while away from home. He'd been stealing food, using her shower, and sleeping in her house while she was at work. Security footage confirmed he'd been there for extended periods. Police arrested him. That modern stranger in your house urban legend? It happened with digital evidence. Technology that's supposed to make homes safer revealed the nightmare scenario. Legend 30. Killer bees were created by science and escaped. Killer bees sound like B-movie fiction. Africanized honeybees were created in Brazil in 1956 by breeding African bees with European bees to improve honey production. In 1957, 26 swarms escaped quarantine and spread throughout South and North America. They're more aggressive than European honeybees and have killed over 1,000 people. That science-created killer bees that escaped legend? Exactly what happened. An experiment escaped containment and spread across 2 continents. The invasion was real, continues today, and was entirely human-caused. So there you have it. 30 urban legends, conspiracy theories, and horror stories that turned out to be documented reality. Sometimes the paranoid were right. Sometimes the impossible happened. Sometimes history is stranger and darker than fiction could imagine. The line between legend and truth is thinner than we'd like to believe. What separates myth from fact is often just documentation and time. Today's conspiracy theory is sometimes tomorrow's declassified document. Which of these shocked you most? Which one did you refuse to believe until you looked it up yourself?
Drop your mind-blown moment in the comments. And if this video just made you question everything you thought was impossible, hit that like button and subscribe, because reality doesn't care about your sense of what should be possible. Truth is stranger than fiction, because fiction has to make sense. Reality doesn't.